Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney. On this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. We have a question and kind of a comment here from YouTube user FN-2187. FN-2187 says, Vince, thank you so much for your trauma-informed approach. Pause. I don't know if I have a trauma-informed approach. I think I'm just trying to do my best based on 14 years of trial and error. Unpause. As a trauma survivor with a slew of re-traumatizing legal experiences, I often daydream about the most awesome legal team in the galaxy and what it would look like. Pause. Awesome. That is an awesome thing to daydream about. I also daydream about it, but I think we probably daydream about that from different angles. Unpause. I wish law firms had in-house trauma counselors, each assigned to a specific attorney. So basically, a client would be working with a team of 2 counselors. The attorney would handle the snarling facts, and the therapist would, that's a great phrase, the snarling facts, and the therapist would facilitate compassionate trauma digestion. That is also a great phrase. I imagine HIPAA and confidentiality could be complicated to iron out, but it would be amazing if a team counselor service was available. It could relieve so much pressure on the client and attorney. It could offer a path to justice and healing. Amazing idea. Amazing idea. 2, I don't know necessarily that HIPAA would be that hard to iron out, but you're right about confidentiality. So 3 major obstacles to this dream coming to life. First obstacle, I have hired attorneys who in their pre-attorney lives were sexual assault and rape counselors. And by saying those 2 words, I've just demonetized the video, but so be it. And in their career as, rape and trauma counselors, they helped a lot of people. Statistically speaking, a lot of women, right? Here's what happened. We had an amazing 2.5 years. And then that individual took a defense job, sitting at the table with sexual harassers and the people who do bad things in the workplace. It's not to throw shade at her, but, it is hard. The kind of people who become counselors are very nurturing, and often very nurturing people do not like being employment attorneys because employment attorneys have to win their money, and that is a brutal and cutthroat endeavor. Employment defense attorneys, they don't have to win anything. Not a goddamn thing. They bill. Often $1,600 an hour. They bill, right? So they're getting paid either way. And for whatever reason, that is much, much more palatable to many of the kinds of human beings who become counselors. So hiring attorneys who were counselors in prior lives has not worked for me. Doesn't mean it might not work for somebody else. It's just I haven't been able to get to work. Now, the next 2 issues are going to go with your imagining of this scenario where you hire a separate counselor team and have them work alongside the attorneys. You underscore the first concern that I have, which is confidentiality. You're bringing in you're bringing in a non-attorney who's not working in a traditional law firm role. And so there's some issue that attorney-client privilege could be subverted if it ends up, that the counselors are in the room when the attorney's talking to the counsel, and that's the first thing the client's going to want, right? The counselor's gonna finish working with the client. The client's gonna like that a whole bunch, and then the client's gonna work with the attorney. And the attorney's gonna be like, "Hey, yeah, stop talking about the things that aren't part of your case. I know they upset you, but stop." And the client's gonna be like, "Don't talk to me that way. Get the counselor back in here. The counselor listens to me." That's a problem. 2 ways. One, now you have a non-attorney who's not subject to the attorney-client privilege in the room, potentially creating a leak in the attorney-client privilege, but also the clients are going to go run back to the counselor every single time because the counselor is going to, as you say, take a trauma-informed approach, right? And that's going to feel much better than the attorney's approach of, here's what I need to win. And we need to win because we are backing you to the tune of somewhere between $20,000 and $100,000. So we need to win, and you need to stop crying and start prepping, right? I'm not saying this is how our firm does things, but this is a common refrain in the field of employment law. I'm so sorry that you're so upset, but you have been living with this for a year, and you don't seem to cry all the time. So maybe we could use this time to work on your case instead of, the tears. Horrible thing for an attorney to say, very counterproductive, very common though. Very many attorneys say these things, right? And when they say these things, this client's gonna be like, I hate you. That trauma counselor feels good. I'm going to go talk to the trauma counselor and tell them how much I hate you. Fair enough, but it's going to be really hard to advance the case. The last issue is just one of economics. So employment law firms have a lot of trouble on the plaintiff side scaling, right? I don't know what the largest plaintiff side employment law firm of all time is, but I think the largest ever may have been less than 20 attorneys. And let me just be clear, 20 in-house attorneys, not counting contract attorneys, outsourced trial people, deposition coding contractors, discovery dens that help break down discovery for firms, not counting all of those outside contractors. We're talking about the in-house employee attorneys of that firm. I believe that was less than 20 attorneys, to the best of my knowledge. I've never known one get bigger than that. Doesn't mean it never happened. I'm just saying I don't know that. I don't know about it ever having happened. And those firms make a lot of money, but you'll find that they don't scale especially well. You can't keep growing. It's not like medical malpractice or personal injury, because this is a field where things are very personality driven, and a lot of what needs to get done in this field is getting your client over the finish line. If the case is not settling, the client has to be prepared and has to go forward. And it's brutal on the client. Brutal. And the personalities of the attorneys in play are very important to whether or not that client will, one, treat their well-being as a slowly renewable resource, and two, if that person will be able to get over the finish line at all, right? You need to break things up. You need to give the person time to recuperate. There's a lot of things that need to go on, and those conversations have to be approached in a caring manner. And most employment attorneys are not caring. So it can be really, really hard to get a firm even past 3 or 5 attorneys. You'll also find that 3 to 5 attorneys in this field could make the firm millions of dollars per year. Legitimately millions of dollars per year. So many of those firms are fine with that. You'll find plenty of principals of plaintiff side employment firms that are just happy with their $3 to $5 million a year or whatever they're doing. Listen, I'm sure Gloria Allred and maybe Doug Wigdor and Once Upon a Time Avenatti were probably making more than that, right? Were they making 10, 15 million a year? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, probably watching the news, I think Doug Wigdor with his new partner, Marjorie Mesidor, we're going to have a pretty phenomenal 2024 thanks to Mr. Sean Combs, right? They're going to have a great effing year, and they're crushing it. They're crushing it. Does it happen every year for them? I don't know. But good for them in 2024. Most firms aren't doing that. Most firms aren't doing that, right? They're doing that based on, I believe, a small volume of cases that are super high value. I think maybe some of the firms out of California are doing higher volumes of cases and making money that way. Different firms make money different ways. Not every case has to be worth $30 million. A case that you take that you think is worth $500,000 that ends up being worth $100,000. Is that exciting? No, but you helped someone, you made some money. Move on, right? I mean, it's what it is. And that's another issue in this field that keeps from scaling, is that what you think a case is worth might just not be accurate because things change, right? So this long tirade is to say, who pays for the trauma team? What does a trauma team cost, right? I'll give you an example. We work every case as a team of 3 attorneys, 2 partners and an associate, usually, and contract attorneys that we attach to the case as well, and a trial attorney. You might have between 5 and 10 attorneys work on a case at different stages if a case goes the full distance with our firm. And that's not like, we're not swapping people in and out. That's the team expanding over time as additional resources are required. It's not like we're passing the case around, right? That is a lot of time and resources going into a case. A lot of human hours, a lot of human attention. Very expensive human attention. Big, expensive degrees attached going into a case. I didn't even touch upon the non-attorneys, the paraprofessionals who touch the case, right? Who are also invaluable. Now, the trauma team you're describing sounds like it's more than one person. Or I guess you're saying one-to-one with the attorneys. Maybe it's more achievable to do one-to-one with the teams, right? Like if you got a team of 3 attorneys working a case and you assign one trauma counselor to that, well, how much does a trauma counselor cost? I mean, social workers, let's be honest, work for almost free in this country, right? Like, I think the average, let's look it up. Why make it up? What is the average wage of a social worker in the United States? Yeah. So salary.com says $59,000 to $86,000 per year. So Indeed.com is more in line with what I thought. Indeed says $33,000 to $87,000. Oh, no, my mistake. That's a different setting. ZipRecruiter says $51,000 to $110,000 per year. Do you know how many degrees a social worker would have to stack to make $110K per year? In New York, it's often like $45,000. If I'm being honest. And none of this is shade at social workers. Trust me. But is a social worker enough for a trauma counselor? Is that enough training, right? I'm not fully aware. I know that a social worker can be a therapist. I don't know if that's the most effective therapist. I don't know what best practice for trauma counselors would be, right? So you got someone, let's just call it 59 between. What is going on? I don't know if you can hear that. There's like snarling going on outside. What is... Oh, I lost my train of thought. So you're adding a person who costs between $59,000 and $86,000 per year to the team. One per team. Multiple teams of attorneys, so multiple trauma counselors. Are the margins there for the firms? Could they do that? Absolutely. Absolutely, they could. They're not going to unless you prove to them that it's going to make them more money. Just straight up. You're not going to get too many firms who spring for an $86,000 a year trauma counselor, just assuming you go with the baseline social worker, unless they can get an ROI, return on investment, for that. And listen, that could be foolishness, right? Like, I've said on this channel many times that attorneys, litigation attorneys especially, are poor business people. Generally speaking, they're not great at business. I'm not saying I am great at business, but I think in fairness to myself, I can say that I'm better than most of the employment attorneys I know. Most of the employment attorneys I know are great at running cases, or not. Some of them are just not, right? But they make business decisions as if they are actively trying to engage in self-harm. And I think you could argue that having trauma counselors at the firm would return higher verdicts because more clients could say no to settlements and embrace the risk and trauma of trial. It would also get them more cases with a trauma-informed approach, right? Like, that's... we don't even have trauma counselors here, right? But our approach to cases and our approach to representation and client service and client well-being you could argue it's better than average in the industry, and it gets us better cases and our pick of many cases. We have a functionally infinite pipeline of potential cases, which frustrates people a lot because we're picking the best cases, the most valuable cases, the biggest cases, right? Only the best cases, right? Which a lot of people who have third from the top best cases are like, why not me? And we're like, well, because you're not the best case, right? We can only work around 450 cases a year, max, with our team, with the resources we have. And you weren't in the top 450 cases in terms of valuation and our exposure to risk, right? So that makes people really mad, especially the person who was the 451st case, right? That person's like, I have an amazing case. My case is so good, so easy to prove, and so valuable. And it is not a satisfying response for us to be like, yes, we agree with you. It is the 451st best case we saw in 2024. I suspect that person would like to sink a crowbar into my face, right? Like, and I get it, but there's also physical limitations, right? So what I'm saying, this is a really long and roundabout way of saying the firms are not going to pay for it. But I agree with you that they should. And honestly, I'm sitting here wondering if I should. I might put some feelers out there and see how it works. What a great idea you've had. My video telling you how it's not going to work. I mean, there's some obstacles to jump through, but I would love to make it work. It's such a great idea. It's such a great idea. What a fantastic idea. I wonder if I could make it work. All right, everybody. If anybody has any solutions to any of the obstacles I listed below, please comment down below. I would love to hear your solutions to those obstacles because this sounds like an amazing idea. I would love to make it work. If you think I'm a POS for some of the things I said about the economics of employment law, let me know. I would love to hear that too. Let me have it. It's fine. If the video was helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below, share the channel so it can grow, and take care, everybody. Hope you're having a lovely week.